Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Daniel Gormally. Um, so today I wanted to review two chessable courses. By the way, I got a lot of comments about my my microphone not being good enough. However, I don't have a problem when I watch the videos. I can hear it pretty well, so I'll get annoyed by these comments saying I need to buy a better microphone. I've got a Yeti microphone. Right, you can see that there. Maybe I've got it on the wrong settings, but it shouldn't be an issue. Um, anyway, I'm annoyed now. I'm in a very bad mood, so I'm gonna go through these videos. I'm as angry as Kramnik when when he thinks someone is cheating against him online, or somebody says something on Twitter that he doesn't like. So Kramnik is a former world chess champion, phenomenal player. Became world champion in 2000. I actually attended that match. I'd seen Kramnik play live before that, actually, in the PCA qualifiers. Sorry, PCA knockout rapid play. I remember him playing against a few players, actually. I remember him playing against Ivanchuk, who I played later myself. And they played phenomenal sort of speed match. The speed which they were playing, I was amazed by. And then he played Kasparov, and funny enough, he only won 2 games. So there are only 2 decisive games in that match, and I turned up for both of them. So that was a weird coincidence. Well, a happy coincidence from my perspective, because it meant, yeah, essentially I missed out on all the boring games. But the first game that Kramnik won in that match was a Bishop E3 against a Grunfeld, which is similar to actually, there's a line that Karpov played as well. So I think Karpov was a player that he's always admired, and he mentions that in lesson 2. So he gives this Karpov game. Now there is a game that actually he gives where Karpov played, which is also mentioned in a book by Mark Dvoretsky. However, I do think that Kramnik's analysis really elevates that that part of the course, really. So that's one thing you're getting with Kramnik. The analysis is really high level. So it's not something that you find difficult to understand. I mean, he presents it in a way that I think is very easily digestible for any players. It's kind of like you're sitting there, you're having this cozy kind of like lesson with Kramnik, right? So he really obviously illustrates how he sort of like came about, to be a top player. How I think Kramnik first came onto the scene in chess in the early 1990s. He was actually picked to play for Russia in the Chess Olympiad in I believe that was in Manila, 1992. So I think the Chess Olympiads in the 1990s were like Manila 92, 94 I think was Moscow. So there's this famous story about Yermolinsky getting beaten up in a car park. I think actually Rogers mentions this Moscow Olympiad. He talks about how, or maybe it was an earlier Olympiad actually, but he talks about how there was this sort of committee to decide the best game prize, and Kasparov was on it, and Kasparov was like votes for all his own games. And he mentions how he wins his game against Ivanchuk, and he says the only 2 people who could understand it were Kasparov and Ivanchuk, because it's such a high level technical game. But yeah, that's kind of what you're getting. You think, like, why are these guys so good, right? Why is Kramnik so good? And when you're looking at his analysis, the depth of his annotations, how he's combining his own analysis with computer analysis, that's what you're getting from the course. And I think he's generally a good writer. He's a good writer in general. He's very engaging. And, this is something I grew up with as a chess player. I got good through reading New in Chess magazine, through playing through the annotations. It was sort of almost pre-computer era, so you did have the chessboard out. You got the chessboard out. You played through the games. That's how I got good at chess. People like Kramnik, people like Anand, people like Kasparov, top level games. But as I say, you know, I think there's a misconception about Chessable that, you know, that is certain courses pitched at certain levels. You know, I feel like whatever level you are, you're able to get something from these courses, in my opinion. You know, it doesn't matter if you're like 1200 level or you're, you know, 2700 level, you're going to find something from this course that you like. You know, and I don't think necessarily he's spent a lot of time thinking about that. I just think that that's just the way it is. It's, you know, chess is a difficult game. So I don't buy into this whole, you know, amateurs, you know, there's certain courses that only amateurs can really, you know, certain courses that only professionals can really appreciate and amateurs can't appreciate them. I don't really buy that, to be honest, because chess is such a difficult game. You should be able to understand, you know, a chess book or a chess course, in my opinion. I didn't really use the Move Trainer because I don't really bother with Move Trainer. I'd rather read the informational part of the course. So I've read through some of the informational part of the course. I didn't buy the video on this course either because I felt that it was too expensive for my budget. So the other course I would compare it to was Chess Principles Reloaded by Anders Toth. He's not as strong a player as Kramnik, but arguably, you know, he's probably a nicer person, right? He's a very nice person. He's probably not going to block you on Twitter. He's less likely to block you on Twitter, so that's always a bonus. I mean, Kramnik's got a lot of publicity recently for these accusations he's made against chess.com in regards to he doesn't think that anti-cheating is good enough. Actually, a friend of mine put up a post yesterday on Facebook mentioning how he actually got told off by Lead Chess for reporting people, and he says he very rarely reports people, and he actually got I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I think the problem with a lot of these websites is a lot of their players are just not very good players. They haven't played at a very high level. They haven't, you know, Kramnik spent a lot of time analysing computers, so therefore he's got a better understanding of when something's a bit off, in my opinion. Maybe not, you know, maybe not to the extent where he should be going around accusing everybody, but he's got a very good understanding of it. You know, and I think these sites like chess.com and Lead Chess, I wouldn't say they're clueless, but they're not as clued in. Anyway, I went off on a bit of a tangent. What do I think of this course? He's a very good presenter. So, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to buy these Chessable courses was to, like, compare myself. You know, why is someone like Anders, who's a lovely guy, he's obviously a great coach, right? Why is he doing better than me on Chessable? You know, he seems to be a very popular author, right? Well, when I watched the video course, I kind of got a feel for that because he's a very good presenter. He's very slick. He's got, really, the passion comes over when he's doing the presenting. It's quite a short course, this. I did buy the video course. I watched through some of the video course, not all of it, because I've still got all this Netflix to get through. I've got all these sort of horror movies stacked up on YouTube that I brought, which I never... It's a bit like that, you know. You buy all these Chessable courses, you never bother to watch them. I'm like the same with YouTube. I buy all these horror movies, you know, these grisly, sort of Terrifier 3 the other day, right? You know, disgusting film, but... yeah. In fact, actually, on the Kramnik course, he mentions as one position, he says it looks like a horror movie, right? So maybe you could do like chess horror positions. Horror, yeah, I could do a chess horror. That'd be a great idea, actually. The chess horror book. You know, the most horrible positions in history. That'd be a great book, actually. I've just thought of that just now. It could combine two of my great loves, chess and horror movies. But yeah, what has Toth got bringing to the table with this course? I mean, I think it's a great course because it got me thinking more about the centre. You know, I started thinking more about taking the centre and controlling the centre. And I think it's something that a lot of even good players neglect, because you feel like I've learnt that and it's time to move on to other stuff that's more sophisticated. But you can't get more sophisticated in the centre. So he's kind of breaking down the different aspects of the centre, you know, sees the centre, how you kind of like, you know, you fight for the centre. Then you've got a dominating pawn centre. He's talking about the defects of that, which is fascinating, but also obviously the upsides of that. Really interesting part of the course. Fighting back, reclaiming lost territory. The central strategies of closed pawn centres. So when I compare the two courses, sorry, let's go. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So I'll click back and then it will go into, I think it's just like they want to sell me more adverts, right? You know, one of the things I would say about Chessable is, because I only really read the informational and I don't bother with the move trainer because I'm too lazy to use the move trainer. I think in future I'm just going to probably just buy chess books, because you can buy a chess book for 20 quid. One thing I would say though, Chessable got an amazing library. You know, because they pay off as well, they're getting people like Kramnik on the table. How many books has Kramnik got? He hasn't got that many books out, really. He had that famous one that he did about his early games, early part of his career was released. I think there was maybe one about one of the matches that he played, but there's not much else. So, you know, obviously Anders has flourished a lot on Chessable. You see down there, I've got Yusupov there as well. So they've got a tremendous catalogue, and if you like an author and you say, well, I like that author, you can go back and then look at their other courses and potentially buy their other courses. But obviously this all costs money in a lot. You know, you do have free courses on Chessable as well, yeah, it's got up here, review all courses 201. What does it mean by that? Oh no, hang on, this is oh, hang on. Maybe this is one of my. This is my course actually. What is the best way for black to continue in this position? I can't even remember the answer to this. Even though this is my own course, it's really pitiful. But anyway, you might be able to work it out yourself. But yeah, so what did I think of the course, and who would I give the vote to? Who do I think has the better course? In my opinion, they're both very good courses. You know, I don't really agree with the review system on Chessable or on Amazon, or, you know, I feel like review scores get inflated. You're generally going high, right? So when you get a book on Amazon, if you look up a chess book on Amazon, most of them got 4.5 or 5 stars, which dilutes the actual effect of an actual 5-star book. That's why I don't really agree with the reviews. If you've got a genuine 5-star course on Chessable, don't get me wrong, that, you know, the very good productions on Chessable, you know, it's a high quality website for chess content. You know, they put a lot of effort in. I know from experience, because I recently did this course, Vanquish the French. Please buy my course. It's not selling as well as I would hope. And there's nobody's reviewed it yet, which is pitiful. Absolute shame on you if you bought the course and they haven't left a review. Shame on you. But, you know, I know from my experience of recording this course that Chessable put a lot of effort in to making sure the course is as good as possible. You know, I've done courses for other websites and they don't have as a higher level. You basically just record the course and like, oh, well, we're happy with that, put it in. With Chessable, they're always coming back to you saying, well, this wasn't good enough, that wasn't good enough. And then, of course, you got the feedback on the actual website itself, where they got the forums and all that kind of stuff, which sometimes it irritates me a little bit, I'll be honest, because you know, you feel like you've done the course, you just want to move on. But no, I understand that the feedback is important. But yeah, it's generally a high bar, it's a high quality thing. So I think that's the thing. But what I would say is, as I say, I don't use the move trainer that much because I'm kind of lazy, and I generally just read the informational. It's probably better from my perspective to buy a chess book. But if we go back to go back to these courses, which do I think was the best course? I personally prefer the Thinking in Chess course, because it is kind of more pitched to a higher level. So I slightly prefer that, just because Kramnik is a stronger player, possibly. You know, and that is what you're getting. Like, but don't get me wrong, I think the other course is very good as well. But I slightly prefer the thinking in chess course because, yeah, I mean, Toth is a much nicer person. So that's something to take into account than Kramnik. I think, you know, in all due respect to Kramnik. I don't know Kramnik very well. I don't know him personally, obviously, but he's a tremendous player. But he's probably not that nice a guy, let's be honest. But you don't have to be a good chess player. You know, Kasparov, I think, is actually an unpleasant person. I wouldn't say that Kramnik is unpleasant. He's quite sociable, whereas I'd say Kasparov is actually quite an unpleasant guy. I've met Kasparov, and he's generally not a very nice guy. But anyway, we're going off on a tangent again, right? Kramnik, I would say, is just a bit arrogant, just a bit of an arrogant person, slightly insecure, I would say. That's probably why he did very well in Germany. He was very dominant in places like Dortmund, because I think that he had that kind of Germanic mentality of being slightly arrogant, but also being slightly insecure, right? So I think that fitted him very, very well. That's why he did so well in Dortmund. But obviously he's just a tremendous player as well. And I think Dortmund was... Maybe people like Anand and Kasparov didn't play very often in Dortmund, if at all. So he was kind of like the top player, really, in Dortmund when he played. But still he had a tremendous record, you know. And one of his games, actually, from Dortmund Open features in one of the early chapters. So I'd give the vote to Kramnik in this case. I do think that it's worth getting both courses, because I think that both courses are very educational, very informative. You know, what would I give them out of 10? I think you're looking at 8 or 9 for both of them, like out of 10. But again, I'm a bit skeptical about the review system. The problem is if you're giving everybody 5 out of 5 stars, that dilutes the effect of a genuine 5 out of 5 course, you know. And what is the middle should be 2.5. So if you're like, in Chessable, we know they're very high quality, but the middle should still be 2.5. So if you're doing like a mediocre course, it should be a 2 or a 1, you know. And if you're doing a brilliant course, it should be a 4 or a 5. That's my personal point. Do you agree with me? Leave your comments down below. But yeah, that's my review. So what I'm going to do next is review one of the next videos I'm going to do is I'm going to review, once I've looked at mastering chess defense and the fundamental twos, I'm going to compare those two and see who wins. But for now, the winner is Vladimir Kramnik. Wins yet again against Anders Toth. But that's only because I think for most people, actually, you could argue that Chess Principles Reloaded would win, right? Because it's just because I feel like I'm a sort of like GM level player, or like to think I am. Well, I'm a GM, you know. So therefore, you know, I think the thinking in chess works slightly better for me because I grew up on that kind of material. You know, I grew up with, but they're both excellent courses. Anyway, so that's the video. Please leave your comments and below. Please like and subscribe.